Beautiful.
Okay.
Oh, do that again. Sorry.
Can everybody please turn off your cameras and mute yourselves?
Am I showing up?
Yep.
Okay. Why are you not going away? Go away. Okay, assign B, black and white. Standing guard.
Well, the first comment is, the question of what you bring to this that is not just copying somebody else's artwork, because taking pictures of either paintings or statues, the question or the burden comes from adding something special to the photograph. And it might be just enough that adding black and white is part of that process. But as submitted, there is very harsh lighting. This looks like it was taken sort of full midday sun, and not the greatest light for trying to convert something like this into effect. I think you need to pick your times and pick your targets a little better. I'm going to give this a 6.
The job.
I like the leading lines in this, and the capture of both. It's immediately New York City because of the statue. The guy walking up the stairs creates interest and motion. It's well developed in terms of lights and darks and gray tones in between. 7. You do twice, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Black,
Okay.
Black and lighthouse.
Yes. Okay. Again, a pretty harsh light, and very, very contrasty. The sky is blown out, and that's okay if you've got essentially a blue sky in a black and white photograph. It's pretty hard to do anything, just tone it down. But this struggles because of the lighting conditions under which you took it. It's got a good range. You do have darks and dark darks and bright whites, so it qualifies from that perspective. But I think you need to look for better lighting either earlier in the morning or later in the day. I know when you visit sites like this Portland Lighthouse, that it's sometimes the luck of the draw in terms of when you get there. But try to look for better light, because I think that will help you capture landscapes like this. 6.
Morning on the porch.
Good expression on the dog. You've used selective depth of field, I think, for strengthening the photograph. The tonality of this is really well done. You've got brights and the blurring of the background really helps to bring out the face of the dog. Nicely done. 7.
Raven Landing.
That's an interesting effect in terms of creating a silhouette in what is really, really bright sun. So some interesting creativity in terms of your composition. I might have darkened down the background just a bit because it is very bright. And I know it almost goes to straight black and straight white, but I think you might have been a little bit more effective if you toned down the background just a little bit. But it's very interesting and very creative. 7.
It's over for me.
you've got the possibilities here that I think you need to work on a little bit more. The sky has texture in it, but it hasn't been augmented at all in terms of post-processing. And I think you're leaving a lot on the, bundled up in the, just sort of the raw file without bringing out the textures in the sky, which could have made this much more dramatic in terms of its impact. The other element that I think you should try to work on and take a look at your photographs and see, what did I do that I shouldn't have done that I'm going to do better the next time? And the answer to that is not cut off the bottom of the tree, because I think it's truncated in literally playing on words here. But you really do need to get the base of that tree, and just backing up a couple of steps with whatever lens you had, I think could have done that. But I like the texture in the tree. I like the composition itself, because it shows foreground, middle ground, and background very effectively. But I think you really do need to work on this, your techniques in terms of post-processing a little bit more. 6.
The dash.
Nice composition. You could have moved back just a hair to get that rear view mirror all the way in the shot without clipping it. But I love the texture that you have in this, and you've used the black and white techniques of texture and interesting shapes to give you a photograph that pulls the eye in. The brightness in the middle of the picture helps, because that's where your eye automatically goes. But then there are these subchapters in the overall photograph that have your eye moving around looking for the various elements and the textures of those elements. Nicely done. 7.
Scrapped idea.
So it's an interesting storytelling shot. You've actually captured a moment of time and a part of a story about what's going on with this guy, and he's not even paying attention to you as the photographer, which can create really interesting shots. And I think you've done a good job here in terms of catching the moment. You've caught his face sharply so that you use the right shutter speed. A minor complaint is that as you post-process, you want to ask yourself the question, where is my eye going to go given the way I've lit the photograph, or I've captured the light in the photograph? And about a third of the picture is that white wall behind the subject that you were trying to capture. If you had moved slightly to the right and had his workshop more in the picture as the background, you would have had a darker background, and I think it would have helped you in terms of the overall effect. But I'm going to look at this one again. 7.
Grocer's Mill.
Okay, so it looks like you were trying to capture atmospheric in the picture. It looks like the top part is emulating fog. I'm not sure if that's just the lighting effect that you put in, or it was actually foggy. But it's an attempt to insert creativity into the photograph. And I think don't lose that sense, because over time you will learn how to do the techniques to make that more realistic in your shots. But the main problem with this photograph is that you're trying to capture a white object without blowing it out, without losing any detail. And you've clearly overexposed, in terms of the shot. And I suspect that if you tried to tone that down in terms of the waterfall, that it would start to turn gray on you in terms of the way you exposed, for the shot. So be careful, watch your histogram, and make sure you're not getting the blinkies in your camera, which means that you're blowing out either highlights or you're too dark in terms of the darks. 6.
Snowy egret.
Now, it's a little on the bright side, but I think you're right at the margin. The leading edge of the wing on the right-hand side of the photograph looks like it's gone over the edge, but you've done a very, very nice job of capturing the texture in the feathers and captured motion and energy in terms of the composition and, you know, the catching the moment where there's action without blurring of the bird. I think this is nicely done in the entry class. 7.
Winter memories.
So this photograph demonstrates what I was talking about in terms of texture in the sky. It adds so much to this shot as an example, and also, you know, in terms of the quality of the shot itself. I think it's a very nice positioning of the trees. And there's a foreground, which is the trees, which is your subject, but then there's depth in terms of the middle ground and then the expanse of the background. So well captured. 7.
Latch.
A nice composition. You've got things that all belong to each other in terms of the chain and what it's connected to. It looks like that has been frozen and is broken in terms of the connection of the chain to the loop there. You've got that horizontal line between the lights and the darks in the picture, which I think works compositionally for you and helps to bring out some of the textures in terms of the different parts of the photograph. And I think you've done a good job of having the light work to pull your eyes in to the center of that chain link. 7.
Meadowlands Environment Center.
So I like the composition. You've done a nice job in terms of pulling the frame down just slightly to not have a necessarily centered picture. So you've tried to lower the effect, and I think that works. You've done some efforts to darken the sky, which I think gives some element of interest to what otherwise is sort of a blank slate. The building for me is a little bit on the bright side. I don't think it's technically blown out, but it might have helped to tone that down a bit. But I like the leading lines that you've used. I like the reflection. I'm going to look at this one again. 7.
Japanese dogwood.
So I like the composition. I like the fact that you've got 3 flowers. The numbers 3 and 6 and 9, the groups of 3s are good compositionally in terms of not just the rules, but balancing out elements within a frame. You've done an interesting job in terms of your post-processing, in terms of creating a darkened background and having the flowers jump out at you in terms of being the brightest elements, as well as positioning them in focus. The one thing I will say is it's a little on the bright side. Be careful of eliminating textures in those flowers. In most of the petals, I can see some element of texture, but the upper right-hand flower is really on the verge, if not over the edge, in terms of lighting. But I'm going to look at this one again. 7.
Okay.
Okay. 9. 9. 8. 9. 8. 8. 9. 9. 8.
That's
and 8.
okay. Sign B, honorable mention. Raven Landing, Edward Schulman. Scrapped idea, Stella Schaefer. Snowy Egret, Edward Schulman. Meadowlands Environment Center, Rosemarie Campbell. Japanese Dogwood, Edward Schulman. Equal Merit, The Job, Leon Lebransky. Morning on the Porch, Rosemarie Campbell. The Dash, Leon Lebransky. Winter Memories, Francine Silver. Latch, Leon Lebransky. Nice work, folks. Signed A. Okay. The signed A, black and white. Backyard Young Buck.
Nice capture of the eyes. In portraits, even with animals, getting the eyes right is really important. And it's really nicely done in terms of the texture of the face as well as the coat of the deer. And I like the furry eyes, or excuse me, ears, which adds even more interest. So even though you created the effect of a narrow depth of field by taking the background out of focus, you've got good sharpness throughout the deer's head and even extending into his body. So it's a nicely captured and processed image. 7.
Boo Dog.
Well, again, we've got an issue about capturing other people's art in a photograph and what it brings. I'm going to pass on that, but be careful of that in the future. The maker did an effort to try to create some drama by darkening the background and taking the distracting elements out of it. There is a lot of what looks like spots, though, and I'm not sure if those are dust spots or just it didn't go dark enough. But they are kind of sloppy in terms of the impact. If you're going to darken it, make sure you really do darken it fully and take out some of those dust spots easily enough. 6.
Down the River.
So I like the composition. It's a nice architectural shot and a cityscape landscape. You've got interesting detail in the buildings and texture in the walls and the river. You've done a nice job in terms of the sky. I might have added just a little bit more contrast to this picture because you really have a lot of good middle tones, but not much in the way of black. Even in the darkest part of the river, or canal, which you might expect the water to be dark. Aside from the reflections that you're getting, it would be nice to have a little bit more darkness in that, but it's a very nice shot. 7.
Emergent.
So it's a nice background or a macro shot. You've done a nice job of keeping the subject in a sharp mode, and I like the selective blurring that you've used to make sure that you're drawing the viewer's eye into the subject. I'm not sure you need as much around the core of the flower, though. You have an awful lot of the picture, which is not the subject. I would say the subject only takes up maybe, a fifth or an eighth of the texture or the space that you've got. So you might want to think about your cropping to give yourself more impact for your subject. But I do like the treatment. 7.
Crisscross plains.
Nice capture. You've got drama in terms of the dynamics of the 4 airplanes. I don't care that there's 4 as opposed to 3 in terms of the rule of 3s, because they're dynamic and they're interacting very effectively. And it's a good capture of the energy associated with this. You did a nice job in the sky. You've got nice tones in terms of blacks and whites and good gray tones. 7.
Between the trees.
I'm scratching my head a little bit because I'm trying to figure out what drew the maker's eye to this particular shot. It's a well-developed and well-exposed picture, but I'm not quite sure what the story is behind this. And I was sort of hoping that there would be a story to explain to the viewer why they should be looking at this picture. And I'm still sort of scratching my head, not sure that I know what it is. It might have been interesting, actually, if it had been cropped to only include the left-hand side of the picture, because you've got what looks like a broken tree there. And the story might have been around that potential accident of that vehicle running into the tree as part of your story. But as it is, I don't think you've told me why I should be looking at this one. 6.
The home of Fritz Henry Lane.
Well, as I'm sure everybody can see, it's a very bright image. And I don't know why the maker chose to make it quite so bright. Black and white, when you overpower with light, tends to repel the eye as opposed to leading it in. I mean, you've got good leading lines coming up with those steps leading up to the house. So you've got the elements of a story here. And I think that the sky was treated nicely, but the ground shouldn't be brighter than the sky. It doesn't quite work in terms of the way you've graded the whites and the blacks and the middle grays. 6.
A skyline in time.
So I like your composition. I like the leading lines that the structures in the water lead you towards the center and then off to the left, but without actually making your eye go off the picture, because your eye comes back to the cityscape behind it, and then it leads you across to the key tower in the back. I like your processing. I like the long exposure and the smooth river. Very nicely done. 7.
Immature turn flying.
Well, I think you've done a nice job in terms of capturing the bird. You've got a good sharp element in his eye. The feathers blend together nicely. There's enough detail in there to satisfy me as as a viewer. You've done an interesting job in terms of the background, and the thing that I find a little bit disturbing is the wavy line at the bottom, because it doesn't blend at all with the rest of the background, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. I'm going to look at this one again. 7.
Dandelion.
Okay, so the maker has done a nice job of creating impact here. The black dark background is and the subject being well lit can help create that kind of drama, and the maker did a nice job of that. I do suggest, though, that when you darken a background that much, if you don't want to show any detail, make sure you keep going with the darkening, because you've got little bits around the background that viewers are distracted by, because they see dots where they shouldn't be, and they're trying to figure out what should I be looking at. So good job, and I'm going to look at this one again as 7. But be careful of those little swatches of things.
Dystopian.
It's a nice capture. You've done a nice job of highlighting the key elements of this, and yet creating a depth over the wall and into the background. But play that down in a way that highlights your subject even more. It's well processed. It's sharp where it needs to be. Nice. 7.
Okay.
9. 8. 8. 9. 9. Uh, 7. That bothers me, that wavy line. 8. And 9.
Signed A, black and white, honorable mention. Down the River, Margot Partridge. Emergent, Fernando Gomes. Dandelion, Wendy Kaplitz. Equal Merit, Backyard Young Buck, Al Figuccio. Crisscross Plains, Al Figuccio. A Skyline in Time, Fernando Gomes. Dystopian, Fernando Gomes. The Sign, Salon, black and white. Reflection.
Very nice capture. Very abstract and yet very specific in terms of the ice melting towards the water below. Good storytelling. Just a recommendation, and not any points off. You really should frame your pictures, especially when you're showing them against a dark background. But that's for another time. But it's a beautiful shot. 7.
Stairs, Yale Art Museum. Say that.
So a nice use of triangles, and the sense of motion that you get, and your eye leading from essentially the top and then around and down the stairs. A good effect. You do have blemishes in the top right and left corner. I'm not sure if that's the result of bad cloning or what those are, but it looks like somebody almost wrinkled up on the right-hand side, the corner, and I'm not sure what I'm seeing in the left-hand corner. I know it would have been difficult to have just cropped to get rid of those because that would have ruined your composition, but those are real hard distractions in this shot. I'm going to look at it again, 7.
Dilly dilly.
Nice abstract pattern. Done a nice job. This is a good example of what I was trying to illustrate with if you're going to turn the background dark, make sure it's dark so that you don't have any distractions coming through. And the maker did a nice job of those of that in this picture. 7.
Shadows and texture.
Oh, I like the abstract lines. The use of the light, very effectively done. You've got multiple themes going on in terms of patterns, and it all works really well. 7.
Crevasse.
So nice picture of a glacier. I like the toning of this. The maker did a really nice job of getting detail out of the shadows without losing the highlights and the dark elements that are the ridges that create the texture and the substance of this of the ice flow here. You lead the viewer's eye up the middle into the center, which is where the brightest part is. So the story works in terms of leading lines and using that gap to lead the viewer. 7.
Dahlia.
I'm trying to figure out what the maker was trying to do here, because you have a very busy background, which doesn't add really anything to the picture, other than causing distractions. And then the brightness of the dahlia petals is really strong. I do like the fact that you've pushed the textures up, because dahlias can be enhanced that way. So I do appreciate your efforts to do that. But the toning of this is very bizarre in the way it's presented. 6.
Suspended in beauty. Hanging orchids.
So the maker did a nice job of toning in this, because the maker was able to get shades of very bright whites to expose textures in the various petals here and in the cores of the orchid flowers. There are some hot spots in here where it might be near the edge, but I'll give the maker the benefit of a doubt because it's very dramatic in terms of its presentation. I'll look at this one again. 7.
Flower non-parallels. Is that correct?
So again, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you do want to be careful about having whites that have texture in them, as opposed to losing the texture that they have. And this one is either right on the edge or have gone over in a couple of, particularly the center flower I can't see any texture in a number of those nodes that we're seeing. You did a good job of getting blacks in the crevices, and I applaud the maker for that. But you want to be careful in terms of reducing the contrast when it's appropriate. And in this particular case, I think you really did need to pull down the contrast so you get more detail and richness out of the flowers. 6.
Sand, ice, and water.
I applaud the maker in terms of your eye. The square format works nicely here. You feel like you've got a blending of the elements in terms of a natural flow between the water, the ice, and the rocks and the sand. And it's toned very well. So you get that expanse of bright whites without overblowing them, and you get the dark coming in the pit of that piece of ice, which is interestingly done. 7.
Water lily.
So this one is a really interesting shot, and it really creates a number of interesting questions for the viewer and pulling the viewer into certain parts of the picture. I like the toning in terms of creating that texture in the flower petals. It's it's a really bright flower, but this one works where the earlier one did not. I do like the treatment of the petals coming towards the viewer. They seem to add depth to the picture in an interesting way, and the background toning is interesting as well, with brightening up in kind of a halo effect, the background behind the flower. So good use of technique there. I'm not sure I would have kept a couple of things in the background other than that lighting, however. You have a couple of streaks on the right-hand side that I think are distractions. And you have a white dot on the left-hand side, which really it really shouldn't be there. But I think it's strongly done. I'm going to look at it again. 7.
Where the river meets the sea.
Nice lines in this picture. You've got a really strong design in following the curves of the river up to the sea stacks at the top of the picture. And I think you've used some interesting techniques to sort of play with the viewer's eye. So you've got a very strong foreground. The midground is still strong in terms of sharpness, but you've blurred the background, those sea stacks, with a kind of a misty view. So you've done a nice job in terms of having them as concrete, but dissipating in terms of their sharpness, which is what your eye would normally do in terms of this type of picture. Really strong picture. 7.
Clean and shiny.
Yes, it is. The maker did a really nice job in terms of keeping the brights from overpowering the scene in the chrome, because chrome is very difficult, very reflective, and reflects back light in ways that are very challenging to try to capture. But the maker did a nice job in terms of the toning of this, and the detail and the textures of the various components. I might have suggested, however, that a little bit more vignetting might have helped pull the users or the viewer's eye into the core element in terms of the air filter on top, which I think is sort of the main subject in the picture itself. And I probably would have toned down the very top of this picture where you've got essentially a really rugged line of white across it, which I think is a distraction easily corrected, but a very strong, striking picture. 7. Nine. 7. 8. 9. 9. 8. 9. 8. 9. 8.
Nine, Salon, black and white, honorable mention. Dilly Dilly, Wendy Milligan. Suspended in Beauty, Wendy Milligan. Water Lily, Ellen Stein. Clean and Shiny, Charlene Fedowitz. April Merritt, Reflections, Lenny McDonald. Shadows and Texture, Charlene Fedowitz. Crevasse, Lenny McDonald. Sand, Ice, and Water, Lenny McDonald. Where the River Meets the Sea, Wendy Milligan. Okay, for our open categories.
Is there any way to tone down the?
I gotta get a remote for that. I don't know if there's anything I could do on my end. I don't.
Because they're showing much brighter on that screen than
If
they
I
actually
if I turn down my screen, you think it works?
Brightness, yeah.
I mean, you could always just turn on the lights and it'd be like less bright relatively, but.
Because I think it's what's sending from
Yeah,
whatever the
Yeah.
image is just coming out of mine. Oop, I can't even see mine now. Yeah, so mine doesn't do it. I'll have to try to get some kind of remote for this TV. I mean, yes, actually, it's better on the eyes if you do put one of the lights on, but I don't think it'll make that much of a difference.
You want to give it a try? It's okay with me.
What do we got here?
no, that's gonna help any.
I'll leave it on if we have to turn it off in the middle.
Well, don't they have a remote to turn it on, or you just flip?
I do the switch. Somebody's took their remote, they haven't replaced it yet. I gotta get the thing. I'll buy it off of eBay. It's like $10. Okay, my open B? Yeah, I'm open B. Okay, open B. Say ah.
Oh, it's a nice rendition of the bee. You've got.
Am I still coming up? My screen's still coming up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so nice rendition of the bee. I'm sounding like a little bit of a broken record here, but you want to have that core of the flower where the bee is harvesting the pollen not be burned out. And so just tone those whites down. And I think this will work. I think you've done a nice job in terms of the background. And for the entry class, I think this is a nice one, 7.
B.
Another B. Okay. So nice, nice use of selective focus here. You've blurred the background with either your choice of lens and depth of field. I'm not sure that I wouldn't have made this a vertical picture though, because you could have cropped on both sides without losing your main subject, which was the bee sitting on the sort of the three stems there. So I'm not going to ding you for this because, you know, it's okay as it is, but you've got on the left-hand side in particular, you see that you're cutting that one stem in the middle when you really don't need that stem at all. And that those are the things that you should look for in terms of eliminating distractions from your story as part of your cropping. 7.
Massachusetts Castle.
So a couple of things that I suggest you learn how to do. And that is, if you're going to do architectural shots, then your object is to get as much of a building or a minimalist shot of the building as your subject. And here, because you cut off parts of the wall and the top of the building, you kind of leave the viewer asking for, well, where's the rest of the building? And so learn to step back, get it, get the lines lined up in terms of the way you point your lens at the, and try to avoid keystoning if you can, which is the way those walls at the edges turn up. And then I think you can build stronger architectural pictures. 6.
Halloween scene.
Well, it certainly has interesting Halloween colors in terms of the sky and the use of the very dark subject elements in terms of the birds and the trees. I'm thinking that the maker intentionally turned up the grain in this picture to give it kind of an atmospheric effect. I think the challenge with the composition, though, is where's my eye? Where's my center of focus that the eye is supposed to go to? And I think the intention of the maker was to have the eye go back and forth between the foreground elements of the tree and the birds, and then contrast that with the background element with the color enhanced with the grain. But my eye keeps going between the two trees or two branches of the trees instead of settling on a core focal point. And so from that perspective, I think, you need to compose with intention to get the viewer's eye to look at what you want them to look at. I'm going to look at this one again. 7.
On the roof.
So I think this is the maker's attempt to tell a story about construction and what it looks like, and the challenges of walking on uneven, partially built surfaces with the guy with the tether to his back. I'm not sure what he's either pulling up or doing exactly, but I think that was the attempt at the storytelling along with the chords. But it's a pretty weak story, I think, unfortunately. I'm not sure that it carries it strong enough to create enough interest to hold the viewer's eye. 6.
The Gift.
I do like the story in this one. It's pretty clear in terms of the truck driver giving out American flags for what is probably a parade. And I like the expressions on the people's faces. It works from a portrait perspective and a storytelling element. I'm not sure what's going on with the borders though, because it looks like the maker didn't quite finish cropping the picture. And so I'll look at this one again, 7, but be careful in terms of your final submissions to get your borders correct. So 7.
The Itsy Bitsy Spider.
So the spider is well done in terms of the subject. It's got good texture. It's got good toning. The background is a bit distracting, particularly in terms of I don't think the maker needed to have the leaf on the left-hand side of the picture included. Because it's pulling your eye towards the edge of the picture, which isn't really about the subject. And so this would have been a good picture to crop in from the left-hand side and have more of a vertical shot of the on the left, cutting out the left side. I'm going to look at this one again, 7.
Monarch Butterfly.
Nicely captured insect, and you did a nice job in terms of the toning of the white flowers. They're white without exploding in terms of the color, and the toning on the butterfly is nicely done. 7.
What's my next move?
The processing of this is clearly intended to provoke, the eye of the viewer. It's toned as a washed out sort of vintage image with kind of vintage color as well. And it has some interest, in terms of what the maker was trying to create. I don't mind that the main subject is off to the side. My question would be though, would this be better and stronger if the right-hand side had been cropped in just to make the subject a little stronger in terms of pulling your eye to the man in the picture? But I'm going to look at this one again, 7.
Iris.
Beautiful toning of the purples. You did a nice job of that. And darkening the background works. I might have darkened the grass underneath a little bit more just to create, more pull to that dark purple at the bottom of the second flower or the bottom flower. But it works for me. 7.
Stranded Bird.
Again, I think it's an interesting effort to use a shape to suggest, an object that it is clearly not, but it looks like it is. I think I would have pulled this one in from the right to strengthen the story of the the twiggy bird, if you will, if you'll let me use that term. And it's not so much about the black cables and and elements within the rest of the shot. So I'm going to look at this one again, 7, but be careful about focusing in on your subject and removing as much distraction from the story as possible. 7.
Iris.
All right, a real challenge in in bright sunlight is to get a white flower without blowing out. And unfortunately for this one, it didn't quite make it. When you're photographing in bright sun, really be careful of overexposing because you can't bring it down enough to keep it white. It turns gray when you burn out the pixels. 6.
Goldfish and lily pond.
Interesting colors. I like the development of it. You've got a really vivid portrayal of the carp and the lily pads and the lily. The lily is extremely bright in terms of its luminance. I might have tried to get that down just a little bit because it just pops there and maybe overly pops. I might also suggest that if you were cleaning up the edges of this, it would strengthen your story. So what I mean by that is you've got on the right-hand side open water, but you've got the tail of what I assume is another fish pulling out of the picture and distracting the eye of the viewer. The other thing is at the very bottom on the right-hand side, you've got something that's nondescript, that's in the edges. And you're saying, why should that be there? It's different tonality than the lily pads up on top, which, kind of raises questions in the viewer's eye. So I would just take those out, maybe take some of the right-hand side out as partly cropping it out as opposed to just cloning it out. But I think it's a very interesting treatment, and I think you were onto the right idea. 7.
Family time.
It's a nice composed shot. Good storytelling with the chicks, the goslings, and the swans. Unfortunately, here's another white object that gets, if it's in the middle of the day, it's going to be tough to get those whites down enough to not throw off the other colors and the lighting in the picture. But you've clearly blown out the feathers on the right hand goose, or excuse me, swan, and you want to be careful of that. I'll look at this one again. 7. It's a nicely composed shot. Good. Oh,
The first photo was a download error.
okay.
That's why
Aha. Okay.
that's why it had that weird cropping.
Aha. Okay.
Just to let you know.
I apologize to the maker.
That is sort of because it was a problem downloading, and when I put it from the phone to the other one, it probably just didn't come up the right way.
Okay, but I think I score this one as a 7 because it's
Because we were going to go back.
we're
the
going to
other
go
one
back
we
and
could
look at
get
that
rid-
again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when it came up, I said, it didn't look like that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
When I got it. Okay.
8. 8. 7.
So I'll make that one a 7.
DQ.
Just DQ it. How do I do that? You know?
Well, you could make it a 7 because it's not going to score.
Right. Okay.
Right. 7. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 7. And I'm going to give this one a 9.
Open B, honorable mention. Say ah, Stella Schaefer. B, Rosemary Campbell. Monarch Butterfly, Rosemary Campbell. What's my next move? Francine Silver. Iris, Edward Schulman. Stranded Bird, Leon Lebransky. Goldfish and Lily Pond, Francine Silver. Equal Merit, Memorial Day, Leon Lebransky. Open A. Open A. Summer's End.
Well, it's interesting story. You know, it's end of the season. It's an empty place. You can imagine, you know, in mid-season it was jammed with kids. So there's some good storytelling in this. And I think the maker's style was to try to turn up the glitz and the saturation in the picture. But I think you might have gone just a little bit further than I would have liked or preferred, maybe. I think it's got good story, and I want to look at it again. 7.
Jackie C.
So nicely captured. One of the important elements in terms of aerial photography, particularly with prop planes, is to try to catch some movement in the propeller without freezing it. And the maker in this particular case did a nice job. The plane is sharp, but the propeller, you're only catching one of either 3 or 4. I can't tell. This is probably 3. Did a nice job of capturing that. So well done. 7.
Rose Window.
So nicely done. These are hard to do, harder sometimes than you think, because there's so much light coming in, and you're trying to get enough light in the darker shades to reflect through and give you those patterns without blowing the whites of the white glass. So nicely done. 7.
Coming at You.
Very interesting. I think the maker did a really nice job here. That selective focus and the blending of the blurring is really well done. And the fact that there are bright spots that are probably, you know, no texture at all, that's okay because they're blurred. And I don't care about those. So nicely balanced. 7.
Feeding the Young Tern.
So good storytelling, uh, a little bit of a penalty for cutting off the wings of the birds, because if you're going to do that, you need to almost do it so that the viewer thinks it's done intentionally, and I don't see that in this presentation. But you captured, you know, one of those great behaviors in terms of feeding that gives life to the story that you're trying to tell. I'm going to look at this one again. 7.
Hanging Branch.
Well, it is a hanging branch. Uh, I'm not sure, however, that there's enough interest in the hanging branch to, to keep people's attention for very long. So I'm going to give this a 6 and encourage the maker to go find more interesting branches.
Look fast.
So again, creative use of the blurring in this, and the maker did a nice job in terms of making sure that there was a strong vignette around the blurring to amplify the effect, and the light elements are in the the center, pulling your eye in. Nicely done, 7.
Mockingbird.
Wow. Nicely done. You've ticked off, the bird's eye, sharp feathers. It's a little bright in terms of the underside of the head, but that's it doesn't bother me in this picture. It's overall very nicely lit and exposed with a good expression in terms of the bird.
Sorry, I did that by mistake.
Okay.
Oh, oh, none, sorry. There we go. There we go.
So I'm going to give this a 7.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. All right. 8, 9, 9, 9, 8, 9, 9.
Open A, honorable mention. Summer's End, Fernando Gomes. Feeding the Young Tern, Al Figuccio. Equal Merit. The Jackie C, Al Figuccio. Rose Window, Wendy Capelitz. Coming at You, Fernando Gomes. Look Fast, Fernando Gomes. Mockingbird, Al Figuccio. And finally, Open Salon.
Okay.
Open Salon. In-Flight Egret.
So I think that the maker captured a sharp egret in flight, and I like the detail underneath the wing that's closest to the viewer. You've got a sharp eye. Overall, you've captured the motion of the bird without blurring the bird. But again, from a highlight perspective, the white wing in the back of the picture is just totally blown out. And I think for the salon class or the best class, that it, shouldn't go unnoticed. 6.
Oops,
Backspace, I think. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Hummingbirds.
So very dramatic in terms of the capture. You've done a great job. The wings of those hummingbirds are so fast. It's very difficult to get them all in stabilized and without any blur. And you've done a really nice job here. The color, I think, because you were trying to amplify the color of the of the birds, you might have pushed the saturation a bit in the rest of the picture a bit. And I definitely think that it would have been easy enough to have darkened the background so that you didn't have that competing sort of chaos of the oranges and the greens distracting from the subject, which was, you know, your hummingbirds. But it's a beautiful capture. 7.
Dahlia.
Yeah. So nicely done. It's got great texture in the leaves. I like the glow that you've gotten in terms of the, you know, the core of the flower. And the background works for me in terms of putting a solid color in. However, one of the things that you want to do is make sure after you've done all of the post-processing to look around the edges of things, and you don't want objects like this has in the bottom petal. There's a line there, and I don't know what that should have been easily just taken out. This is a beautiful photograph, and just for the want of, you know, one more step, it would have certainly been a 9 in my categories. I'm going to look at it again. 7 though.
Sitting Pretty, Dragonfly.
Nice capture. I like the glow that you've got behind the dragonfly. The toning on this is a little bright for my my taste, especially since the whites on the inside of the lily are losing detail again. The rest of it works. You know, it's very bright in terms of the pushing of saturation here, but that could be just a question of taste. But I really do think that you pushed this one maybe a hair too much, but it's a beautiful capture. 7.
Blue Heron Island.
He's got his own island. Yes, it's a nice capture. Good toning. It's good environmental shot. You do get the sense of what the maker was talking about in his title. And I think that helps. The eyes are sharp, the feathers are sharp, good toning. 7.
Buds.
Overall, a nice presentation. I think there are a couple of things that would have strengthened it even just a bit more, because they're in the little details that if you look at it long enough are going to start to come out. And let me point a couple of those out. At the very bottom, you have another bud partially shown as a distraction on the edge of the photograph. You don't want to do that. You want to eliminate that either by cropping a little bit more or taking it out. There's also a little bit of a spur at the very top of the picture, which doesn't look anything like anything else in the picture, and you're trying to figure out what is that. But it's an interesting capture from what the viewer was seeing and then making something of it in terms of the presentation. So I'm going to look at this again. 7.
Purple and White Dahlia.
Okay, so and we are in the upper class, right?
Yes,
Salon class. I think you've just lost all of the texture in the whites of the dahlia, and I think the process was done correctly in terms of darkening the background, bringing out the color, you know, in the purples. But those whites just explode, and
It's a misrepresentation.
yeah. What?
It's totally different showing on the
Yeah, I
computer.
think this
than
TV
it
is very
showing
bright and
there.
also very like, it might be set to like vivid mode where it increases the saturation. That's like, they all seem very saturated.
Okay, so, what?
I mean,
We've got a problem because it's showing totally different.
I mean, you rated every other one. So yeah.
That's fine, but we've got a real problem.
Okay.
Yes.
It's our real problem with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you've already
Yeah, no,
I've got gave sevens to a lot of people.
that really shouldn't have been thrown out.
Well, you know,
Yeah, well, it's,
You have to go by what you see there. Right.
Yeah.
On the TV.
well, I'll give this a 7 and we'll look at it again.
it's fine, but.
Latina in lavender. Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, it's an interesting portrait, nicely done. I like the lighting that you used here. You very creative use of flash. You know, and you've ordinarily, you know, when you're trying to do portraits, one of the things you want to do is not get layers mixed up. And you have blossoms, you know, of those purple shoots coming up and intermixing with her dress at the bottom. But it's such a powerful shot, and the storytelling actually sort of gives you license, I think, in terms of this. I'm going to give this a 7 and look at it again.
Monarch.
Ooh. Ooh. Well, a beautiful rendition of the monarch butterfly. You've got the head and all the wing nicely sharpened, good color. The flower, however, is exploding, and I don't know what to do in terms of.
And
Whoever set up this TV set it to like vivid mode and like as bright as possible.
because it's gorgeous on,
Yeah, it is. It is.
it's a shame.
We could do it more.
Well, I'm going to give this a 7, and we'll move on.
Intentional.
It's a nice abstraction. You know, it's it blends layering and slight camera movement, you know, intentional camera movement, and it's created a beautiful set of layers that's very calming. 7.
Flying rainbow.
Nice capture of color. It's got great action. You know, the viewer's eye keeps going to the curves and the movement and the energy associated with it. And a nice black background to highlight the color. 7.
Praise in the lavender field.
So for me, the flash impact here doesn't work quite as well as the prior capture in this field. And yeah, I see it. I see it. And you know what we're seeing is a bursting of color in her face that doesn't show up in your computer screen. But as presented, I think this one has some challenges, but let's go through this again and I'll take another look at it, 7, because I'm gonna vote for them on the second one anyway. Nine. Oh, this is beautifully done. Despite the imperfection, I'm going to give you a 9 as well on this one. Nine. 9. 8. 8. 9. 8. 9. 9. 8.
Open Salon, honorable mention, Buds, Lenny McDonald. Purple and White Dahlia, Ellen Stein. Monarch, Charlene Fedowitz. Praise the Lavender Field, Wendy Milligan. Equal Merit, Hummingbirds, Lenny McDonald. Dahlia, Ellen Stein. Sitting Pretty, Wendy Milligan. Blue Heron Island, Charlene Fedowitz. Latina in the Lavender Field, Wendy Milligan. Intentional, Lenny McDonald. Flying Rainbow, Ellen Stein. And that concludes. Okay, how do I stop?
Well, just think that for a minute. There are,
Oh,
a lot of times there's.
there's a button right by that bottom square, but it doesn't really do it.
Cause a lot of TVs have like a mode that's like vivid mode where. it's
They,
yellow,
yeah,
it's
but the problem is,
saturation.
I would have, actually, I've gotta get a remote.
No, yeah,
Because they
will.
lost the damn remote and they haven't replaced it. But whatever I do here does not relate to,
No, yeah, totally, it's not.
As you may have heard from some of the commentary here, we seem to have had a problem this evening with the lighting on the screen of the TV that we're showing the images on. So we're gonna have to get a remote for this TV and bring down what the brilliance are, the lighting on the,
It's just too bright.
it's too bright. And what it's doing, unfortunately, is anybody who's put in images that have whites in them or light patches, it's making them overly bright and removing all of the detail from them. So we're gonna work on that for the next competition, and sorry to anybody whose images didn't get the credit that they should have.
Remote. No, it's a button. It turns it on and off.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, like the black light, the guy and the shed in the back there, like, in mine, the shed's kind of gray, but the EAC like long.
Does anybody online have any questions? If not, we'll say good night to everybody online.
I got you.